having a lesson on planning and collecting data. Many of our life we need to collect data, but before you have to collect your data, you need to plan. There are people who are working in organizations that need data to work because we need data to take decisions. Okay? So on this lesson, we're going to look at two main objectives. We're going to look at planning, and then we'll look at collecting data. But our main focus today will be on planning. What is planning? Planning means that you are taking steps to organize yourself to do an activity now or in the future. That means you are planning to take an activity in a more systematic way. What are you planning towards? You are planning towards collecting a data. So what are the key things that you need to know when it comes to planning for collecting a data? First, you need to understand what a data is before you continue with your planning. So we will look at the meanings of the key words that we have when it comes to planning. First, you need to know the meaning of a data. And a data is a factual information for decision making. So which means that it's a fact. It is not by guess. You have to get something that is real. Second, you need information. So what is an information? So information simply means that a communication of knowledge. So whenever there's a communication of knowledge, it means that you have an information. It can also mean that a knowledge obtained from a study or an investigation. So when you do a particular study or you do an investigation, an experiment, and you come up with your findings, it is also known as an information. Information and data can be used interchangeably. Sometimes you can say data, sometimes you can say information. They all mean the same. There are two main components when it comes to data. We have the primary data and then we have the secondary data. So whenever we hear the word primary, it means at first hand, okay? So primary data are information that you collect yourself. So whenever you do your investigations, you do your survey, you do an experiment and you come out with your finding, you do it by yourself. It means that that data is a primary data. You collected it by yourself. If you are falling on someone's work, someone's investigation, someone's data, that information that you pick is called a secondary data. So a secondary data is that information that someone has already collected. Or someone already finished that and then it's been given out for people to have access to. That becomes your secondary data. So in short, these are the examples of secondary and primary data that we have. If you do a survey, if you do an experiment, your results, your findings become a primary data. If you look for information or data on the internet, from newspapers or from books, it means that information or data that you are working on is a secondary data. Someone worked on that and you have access to use for whatever decision making that you also want to carry. Okay? So this is the first steps that you need to take when it comes to planning. Planning to collect data. These are the first things that you have to note. You have to note that you are working on the data, you come up with an information. You have to decide, do you need a primary data for your planning of collection or you need a secondary data for your collection of data? So whenever you are going to use a primary data for your collection, it means you have to carry that activity by yourself. If you require that you have to use a secondary data for your decision making, then you have to fall on the internet, newspapers and books. So these are the two different ways that you can collect a data. Either by primary, doing it by yourself, or secondary falling on someone's work done already. Okay? On this section, we will move to our first activity, which is our first task for the day. We have exercise 6.1 at pages 64 and 65 at the learner's book section of your textbook. There are questions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So these questions basically are going to test you how you understand primary data and secondary data. I'll be looking forward to see your feedbacks, and then I see you also on our second video. Welcome to our second video on our math class. Our topic is planning and collecting data. We know that a data is a factual information for decision making. We also know that when we say information is a communication of knowledge, or it is a knowledge obtained from a study or an investigation. There are two main types of data that we have. We have the primary data, and then we have the secondary data. The primary data is the data that you collect by yourself, which means you can do that by having an experiment, or you can do a survey on that. When it comes to the secondary data, it means that you fall on someone's work already done. So if someone collects a data and puts on the internet, writes a book where they put it on the newspaper, this becomes a secondary data that you can also fall on. So in planning for data collection, there are two main things that you have to look out for. Either your work requires that you do a primary data sourcing, or you do a secondary data sourcing, okay? And then you have to look for the location. You have to know that if the location will help you to have a primary data, or your location will not help you to have a primary data, so you have to fall on a secondary data. On this part, we will move to our second activity for today's lesson, and that can be found at page 35 of our practice book. So we have so many questions there, but we will limit ourselves to questions we'll limit ourselves to questions we'll have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so we'll limit ourselves to question 1, 2, 3, and 4 for this particular exercise. Okay, I'll be looking forward to see your answers for these questions, and then we'll meet in our third video. So goodbye. Hello students, welcome to the third part of our maths class. I believe that you've had an interesting session from the first and the second parts that we held. On this last part, we'll do an overview of what we are doing today. We are looking at planning and collecting data. The main objective of this session has been planning, and in planning we have to look at some keywords. The keywords has been data, information, primary data, and secondary data. Among these, the categories of being a primary or a secondary data will help you to decide how far you have to go with your planning, okay? On this part, we will move to our homework so that we can finished for this class. Our homework is still exercise 6.1. We are looking at planning to collect data, page 35, questions 1 and 2. It actually comes with 1A to C, and this also comes with 2A up to 2C. You can find this homework at the challenge book part of your textbook. So, students, this is the end of our class for today. I'll see you next week.